All right, I'm gonna skip a couple of the questions we've already gone over, but let's talk about. I want to phrase this a little bit differently because we've already talked about it a little bit. But I'm sure you recall that many people on social media who considered themselves social justice activists in some cases engaged in campaigns on social media to deliberately change works of art and pressure developers or artists to change their works. Do you remember this?
I do.
The spring of 2015. We all
Oh,
remember.
and on to this day. They're just doing it now, screaming over Azure Lane.
It's interesting. We might have different perceptions of this. I view the summer of 2015 as perhaps the most insane and wild time during the whole Gamergate affair. It was every single
It
week there
was
was
every
some new.
goddamn.
It
It
was like
was
every
every
3 days. It was every three
freaking week.
days.
It was the covers. It was that Samus design. It was the goddamn beach body ready thing. It was something every goddamn week.
But then something happened. In my perception, and we might disagree, and that could be interesting to explore. In my perception, once the summer hit, it all kind of mostly went away. There was this massive push towards censorship in the spring of 2015, but by summer, it had pretty much dwindled down. And
It was the
it's
beach body ready thing. The beach body ready people stood up to them. They refused to give in, and they really kind of at the time broke that big push because they showed the other companies and other artists that if you resist these people, they have no real power over you. And in many ways, I think the whole thing might have been on the downswing after that if it hadn't been for the 2016 presidential election and its run-up.
I don't recall there being really any censorship controversies after the protein world situation. No, sorry, correction. I don't recall there being social media campaigns aimed at pressuring developers and artists into censoring themselves after really the summer of 2015. I don't remember any such incidents.
Well, do you remember rmika?
No.
In Street Fighter V, they had a very sexy design for the character rmika. And that caused a lot of kerfluffle, and they ended up censoring it and removing camera angles where she could be seen slapping her butt. There was also then the character Tracer in Overwatch. And there was a big controversy about her butt and whether her butt was being shown to the camera too much, and that resulted in Blizzard censoring the pose. There were a number of
Oh.
things like that.
Okay.
There were a number of things like that. It continued, but it dwindled below that every goddamn week pace that it had been for a while. And I think that it was for a while on the downswing. And then Donald Trump happened. And that just messed up everything.
Auron, do you remember my take on the Tracer controversy?
Not offhand. It was so long ago I had to Google which pose was the one they took out and which one was the one they replaced it with.
I very much supported the controversy, Which is to say, I thought it was kind of a dumb criticism, but this is exactly what I advocated that the people who are angry about games do. I specifically said for months, my argument was, look, engaging in campaigns to pressure developers into censorship is bad. If you disagree, give them feedback, give them criticism, convince them the ideas that you have are better. And that's what the poster did. He didn't engage in a campaign. He didn't engage in a call for censorship. He said, hey, I think this is sexist. I would prefer that you not have this. One person made one opinion, expressed it on a forum, and the developer said, you know what? I agree. Let's go ahead and take that out. That's exactly the kind of thing that I want them to do in the future. Not pressure people, but I was happy. I defended that guy.
I think that I would have to ask the guy, in a game where you can pick your character's victory pose from a wide array of options, most of which are not sexual in any way, why don't you just pick a different pose? That was much the same as with the comic book covers and things like that. A lot of these things were not even the issue's official cover. They were a variant cover that was of limited availability for people who really wanted it. And if you don't like it, why don't you just buy a different cover? Why don't you just use a different victory pose? Why are you concerned with taking it away from other people rather than simply wanting to have your own experience in your own way? That's why when it's stuff like the current nonsense about pronouns in Starfield and mods to remove them, it seems insane to me to try to take away people's ability to access mods that remove the pronoun. I think, mind you, I think the objection and the making such a big deal out of the pronouns in the game is kind of stupid and overblown. But if somebody really cares that much and goes so far as to want to mod their copy of the game to remove it, why is that your business? Why do you care how they play? You don't have to use that mod. You would have to actively seek that out and install it. And that's where I am with a lot of this stuff. These social justice warriors don't just want the ability to have an experience of the game or the comic or what have you that is comfortable for them. They want to control what other people are allowed to experience. They want to take the content away from those who do enjoy it. And I just don't see that as a reasonable demand or as being at all compatible with principles of free speech. You know, if you feel that something is attacking you and you want it out of your way so that you can enjoy media without feeling attacked, that's reasonable feedback. That's even a reasonable thing to campaign for. But if you're trying to take away options from other people, that's rarely reasonable. Unless you can prove that having those options causes some kind of concrete real-world harm, you shouldn't be doing that. If I had my way, the resolution to all of this tug of war, should things be more or less sexy, all that stuff, would be to just standardize the idea that fan service is toggleable in a game's options menu. I think that would be the best outcome that would give the most choice and the most satisfaction to the most people. Is you can just go into the options menu, you can click a button that says I'm attracted to guys, girls, both, etc. for, some people who don't consider themselves either. And I want fan service up to PG, PG-13, R, X, or none. And the game experience is toggled to represent what you like. If you want all the guys in loincloths because that's what you're into, you can have that. If you want all the chicks in bikinis because that's what you're into, you can have that. If you want full nudity and it's an M-rated game, you can have that. If you think the whole fan service thing is trite and distracting or kind of sexist and you don't like it, you can just shut it off.
Auron, why is the guy making a post on the forum saying, hey, I think this is sexist, I don't like this? Why is that censorship?
I said, because why is he trying to take it away from other people? If he already has the option in the game not to have to view it himself.
Look, I think it's stupid too, but isn't that better than having people engage in censorship campaigns?
I mean, it's better. It's better. It's not, at least you're not screaming at people on social media and whipping up mobs. It's an improvement. But I still think that trying to control other people's experience of a video game like that, when you already have the ability to avoid the content yourself, is kind of dickish.
But at the same... Go ahead.
It's controlling. It's authoritarian.
Isn't it also authoritarian to say, hey, you can't criticize the video game in this way? Because what if the developer's like, hey, look, you know what? I think this is a valid criticism. I'm glad I heard this critique, and I want to take this into account. Or maybe they can dismiss it too. They have multiple options. They can approach it any way they want. But aren't you, by trying to essentially stifle this guy's voice, this guy who says it's sexist, aren't you stifling his voice and the developer's ability to hear that feedback and that criticism of their artistic work?
I think that's potentially true, but again, isn't he trying to stifle the original vision of the game?
He may be trying to stifle the... Oh, God, you want to add more to that?
It's sort of a philosophical question of, can you stifle the stifler? Somewhat related, I guess, to the paradox of tolerance. And I'm not going to say that it's on the same level. The paradox of tolerance is often misquoted, and the guy who originally wrote that said that he meant it to be applied to people who are attempting political violence. That the intolerant, as he sees it, are those who are trying to stifle tolerance through the use of fists and pistols. And obviously, nobody in this controversy was using fists or pistols. In fact, the entire GamerGate controversy, as angry as people got, was impressively non-violent on both sides. I don't think through the whole thing, anybody threw a single punch.
Let's revisit this for a second. I don't want to loop, but I do want to be critical. I see a weak point here. I'm not trying to debate you, actually. I see a weak point here, and I want you to make the best arguments you can make. I want everybody to make the best arguments they can make.
and I am doing my best. I see it as a question of, can you stifle the stifler? And if you do stifle the stifler, is that the same moral wrong as the stifler's initial attempt to stifle someone else? Which comes back to my principle of self-defense. If someone else started it and you do it back to stop them from coming for something that you like, or from smearing you, or what have you, then they're the ones initially and primarily in the wrong.
Auron, I want to ask a hypothetical.
Shoot.
Let's say you create a you create a painting. Someone approaches you. They say, "Hey, that's a pretty good painting, but I don't like this one aspect of it here." And you said, "You know what? You're right. Let me change that." Did they stifle that person's creative freedom?
No, because there's one painting. The painting isn't something that they can then modify and customize. The painting is the painting, and everybody who views it in the art gallery is going to see the same painting. And it's something that everybody is sharing and everybody is voicing their opinions on the same thing. And that's not really true when it comes to many of these things in games and comic books, because games are an interactive medium where you have a lot of ability to customize your own experience. So your not liking it is already factored into the original design. As I've said with the Tracer pose, she had several different victory poses that a player could use. And you could pick the one that suited your tastes. So if you didn't like the butt shot one, you didn't have to use it. But if someone else did like it, they still could. And I don't think that it's reasonable to complain that someone else is allowed to do something that you don't have to do and you don't have to experience and that really doesn't affect you, and you're just trying to control that other person's experience rather than enhance your own. If everybody is viewing the same painting in the gallery, then the person who is complaining and trying to convince the artist to change the painting is trying to enhance their own viewing experience. They're trying to make the painting more compatible with their tastes. And that's not unreasonable, and the motive isn't inherently censorious. It's not about suppressing something. It's about increasing their own aesthetic pleasure in viewing the painting. But when it's content that is already optional and an individual player doesn't have to engage with, and they just want to take it away from other players who do like it, I think then the intent is to suppress, and then it meets the definition of censorship that you would find in most mainstream dictionaries, and that is used by anti-censorship groups such as the American Civil Liberties Union, who describe censorship as a desire to suppress speech that someone considers offensive.
Auron, could it be someone's opinion? Their artistic critique. Could someone's artistic critique be that I think that your artistic work as a whole is degraded because of this one thing I don't like?
I mean, I suppose it's theoretically possible, but when that thing is already optional and you don't have to engage with it at all in your copy, you don't have to use it, you have other options, it can not be a part of your experience. That frankly sounds like emotional blackmail.
All right, well, hey man, dude, I'm having fun with this. I want to keep going. I have to hit the restroom. I don't know about you.
I should probably do the same.
Oh, hey, but out of character, obviously. Do you want to actually set up like a formal debate on the Tracer thing? I can probably get us a moderator who'd be interested in doing it too.
I might. I mean, the Tracer thing specifically is at this point such an old controversy.
Well,
like on the more general topic of where exactly the lines are for censorship, it's an interesting topic, and I've debated it with a lot of people, especially a lot of anti-GamerGaters, for years. And I acknowledge that there are some subjectivities to it, and there are some points where it's hard to draw a bright, clear line, but my sort of aggressor-defender paradigm is the best I've come up with to try to find a line that's fair to everyone.
All right, well, dude, we can definitely.
If you're interested in doing a formal debate on where the lines between feedback and censorship are, I would totally be up for that.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000% I want to do this. But let's hit the restroom, and then we'll come back and we'll finish the interview, okay?
We will be right back after these messages from our bladders.
All right. Don't go anywhere, chat. Don't go anywhere.